Hello.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Very good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, very good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Very good afternoon. Okay, we'll start class today.
Good afternoon, sir.
Very good afternoon. So today we'll do VS Naipaul, two words.
Can you sir page number?
169. Hello. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Can anyone of you read the first paragraph? Hello.
Page number, sir.
169.
May I start, sir?
Krishna.
VS Naipaul, two walls. May I, sir? May I, sir? VS Naipaul, two walls that we have. Today we have this. Hello, Ashok, sir.
Ruhina, you start off. Ruhina,
Yes.
please go ahead.
Okay. VS Naipaul, two words. The Noble Lecture. This is unusual for me. I have given readings and not lectures. I have told people who ask for lecture that I have no lecture to give. And that is true. It might seem strange that a man who has dealt in words and emotions and ideas for nearly 50 years shouldn't have a few to spare, so to speak. But everything of value about me is in my books. Whatever extra there is in me at any given moment isn't fully formed, I am hardly aware of it. It awaits the next book. It will, with luck, come to me during the actual writing, and it will take me by surprise. That element of surprise is what I look for when I am writing. It is my way of judging what I am doing, which is never an easy thing to do. Over.
Yeah. So here, as a writer, he mentioned that this is unusual for me. What is that? He says it is not at all a usual thing. It is unusual for V.S. Naipaul, and he read the books, not lectures. And he mentions that there are no lectures to give, only reading. And it is true, here it is a strange that a man can deal with the emotions and ideas. 50 years should not have a few spare, so to speak. So here, as we all know, to write the exams. How do we write the exams? Can anyone of you please respond? Hello? Hello?
Sir, I didn't get your question.
After preparing,
Okay then.
for knowing the concept and the
Okay. Here, a general idea of our lectures as well as the reading shows that how best can be do the
Sir, you are on mute.
just a minute, yeah. So here, if you look at this kind of reading makes an exact man. If you look at Francis Bacon's sayings, writing makes a complete man. So here, before going to attend the exam, all of us have the idea that we should prepare. And if you are going to write the exam as per the question, your answer should be relevant. And here he says, he read books like anything. 50 years should not have a few to spare, so to speak, but everything of value about. Farm, I am hardly about me is in my books. Whatever extra there is in me at any given moment is not fully formed. I am hardly aware of it. It awaits the next book. I will, with luck, come to me during the actual writing. And it will take me by surprise. The element of surprise is what I look for when I am writing. It is my way of judging what I am doing, which is never an easy thing to do. So as and when we look the paragraph that he had mentioned, I am hardly aware of it. I have given reading and not lectures. I look for when I am writing. So here I am doing, which is never an easy thing to do. So as a creative writer, he had the way back to literature which he read. literature of centuries, way back to centuries. He read the literature like anything. For what? Is it to lecture or is it to write? So here he says that, and not lectures. He read not for delivering a lecture, it is for a writing. So my question is that how does writing will emerge? Can anyone of you respond? How can anyone enable the writing skill? Yes.
By the reading books.
Okay. Yeah. We might have read more than 500 books since our childhood. Hopefully for only examination, not for the creativity. And we may read generally for time pass. For instance, poetry for pleasure, and you may read a novel. Is it a way to read a literary text? So here, what makes the reader to become an orator or a writer? So here, my point is that it is not for only examination point of view. You should have the knowledge and the memory. For instance, here, what makes the model essay? Hello? Hello,
Yes,
students?
sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Hello? My question is here, what makes to write a model essay? How do you say this is what the model essay? Can any one of you please respond to this?
First, we take the content, title.
Hello, 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 students.
Yes, sir.
Here, you have to question what kind of reader are you? What kind of readers are we? My question is very simple. Yes. Can any one of you please?
Intensive reader. Intensive reader.
Hmm. And who else are there? Is there anybody else to respond? Sir, hello. Some of the,
Yes, silent
participants
readers
are,
and extensive readers.
okay.
Like active readers, passive readers. We have all kinds of readers around in the world. If I, as you have quoted, sir, Francis Bacon's quotation, one of his thought, especially which was quoted on reading, where he said, "Reading maketh a man, full man, conference, a ready man, and writing an exact man," which we have learned this in the first year of previous year in MA English. Actually.
Very good, very good. Okay.
Yeah. So my point here is, sir, in the first paragraph, the intro part of V.S. Naipaul, where you were sharing about, like, he focused on writing as well as reading, right? Is it like you? I'm not sure if I understood this correctly. Is he showing the contrast between these two skills, or is he emphasizing on the writing skill and the reading skill?
So here, if you look at that as a writer, he read many books not for the lectures.
Yes.
To become a writer. So here, it is not at all a cup of coffee of anyone. So he mentioned, I am doing what I am doing, which is never an easy thing to do. So here, what is his focus is writing.
Yes.
Is not an ordinary thing. It has the creativity. So my question is that, what kind of readers are we? Are you able to understand here point? You said intensive reader, extensive reader. Okay, we can understand Francis Bacon's quotations. and skimming and scanning, sub skills of reading. We read a newspaper, an article, or we read a bus number of the bus, the name of the city. We read signboards and all. So, what kind of readers, as a literature students, my question is here: is it for only examination point of view, or
No.
is it for a creativity, or is it for to write an article or to write an essay? For instance, if you are going to write an essay, what you need to have to write a model essay? My question is this: can anyone
We
of you
need to
please?
as per my idea goes, I feel we need to be a reflective reader. See, there are
Okay.
tactic readers, strategic readers we have, aware readers we have. But as per on grounds of literature, I feel we need to be reflective. I mean, any content that you take, on grounds of literature, I'm talking about only on the literature domain. Maybe we need to decipher the meaning, the content, and then express our thoughts confidently about, making it into a composition or maybe an essay.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Like that's my. I'm just sharing my idea.
Yeah. If we look at this kind of question, there are multiple answers to it. For instance, here, as examining our role as a student to write, our exam paper, not any other thing. So it is up to the mark, it is the question to the answer only. So here, if you look at that kind of question to answer, there is no any kind of creativity. Is it or not? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. So because you should have the answer which is relevant to the question.
Correct.
Okay. For that, you need to go beyond the text which is for the examination. Is it or not? But here, a creative writer needs to read more and more, and the reading will generate the memory to write an article or any poem or any kind of script of our creativity. For instance, if you look at Shakespeare's dramas or any poet of any age, they never and ever read anything, but they had that kind of spontaneity. So because of that unprepared exam or any kind of creative work to write, they never and ever had any kind of thing in their mind. So here, if you look at the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. For instance, if you look at stream of consciousness technique, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Stream of consciousness technique. You know stream of consciousness?
Writing discourse.
Yeah. It's a technique. For instance, if you look at Virginia Woolf,
A
the
rooms
way
of one's own.
A room
a room of one's
last
own.
year we had. Yes.
Mr. Dalloway. And if you look at that stream of consciousness technique, which is unbroken flow of thought, if you look at, they are escapists from the tyranny of time. One of the critic, David H. says that stream of consciousness emerges from the tyranny of time, and they escape from the day, night, no matter. There are only commas, no full stop. Are you able to understand? So here, V.S. Naipaul had tried to say that whatever he read, the books are for not lectures, for writing, and which is a toughest thing. So here in the following paragraph, he says, Proust has written with great penetration of the difference between the writer as writer and the writer as a social being. So here, man is a social animal. So if we look at that kind of creativity in the backdrop of society, so here you can see that how here Proust had this kind of background to know how the writing emerges, as well as how it will generate the idea of the creativity from the background of its society. So this is what here in our literature we have the neo-criticism, neo-historicism, and how the background of the writer as well as the literary text. So here he had mentioned that the way the writer Marcel Proust had differentiated between the writer and the writer as social being. So when we look at this kind of creativity of the writer as a social being, you will find his thoughts in some of his essays in Against Saint View, a book reconstituted from his early papers. So this is what the way how they are generating the idea of the writing from the society as a social being. So in 19th century, French critic Saint Beuve believed that to understand a writer, it was necessary to know as much as possible about the exterior man and details of his life. So as I told you here, the way how a literary text deals with the background of the author, no matter of any genre, here literary text deals with the background of the author. So we should know that how a literary text is emerging from the society, and we need to look at the background of the literary text of the writer. It is beguiling method using
Excuse
the
me, sir.
man to, yes.
Sir, now we are learning this two word. No, what it refers?
Yeah,
Is it
see here,
a speech?
yeah. That is what I'm trying to differentiate that our life of a student is different from the creative writing of your other world. Are you able to understand? Two worlds.
Can you
A
please say that again,
a
sir?
writer, yeah.
Can you please repeat that, sir?
For instance, a writer is of any age. He or she may have two worlds. One is their personal, the other one
Other
is
one is
a literary
exterior.
world. Did you get my point?
Okay.
Hello?
Okay,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Is it a speech or essay?
Pardon?
Sir, this two word, no, we are learning this. Is it a speech or an essay?
It's a lecture. It's here you see that how this unit is with this kind of prose style of two writers. One is V.S. Naipaul, the other one is Jean Paul Sartre. Are you able to understand? So here my point is that to say the difference between the one world of one's personal life, the other world is literary creativity. These both are with this kind of two worlds. Did you get my point? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. I got this. Two words means one word refer to personal word and second
Yeah.
word refer to literary word. But
Yes, that
my
means
doubt
here.
is there.
Yeah. Now is it clear?
Yes, it is clear, sir. But is it a speech or essay? My question is this now. Second question is this.
Essay, it is essay.
It is an essay. Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So here, if you look at this kind of, all the whatever the concerns of the writing, then we can understand how these two worlds, of this literary world. In a literary world, writers have two worlds. One is their personal background. The other one is their literary future. Is it or not? Hello?
Yes,
Hello, can you hear me? But Faust is
Yes, sir.
able very convincingly to pick it apart. This method of saying view, Faust writes, ignores what a very slight degree of self-acquaintance teaches us that a book is the product of a different self from the self we manifest in our habits, in our social life, in our vices. If we would try to understand that particular self, it is by searching our own bosoms and writing to reconstruct it there that we may arrive at it. For instance, can anyone of you write your diary every day? Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
we make a journal every day. Yes, sir.
Yeah, some of you may write diary. So that is nothing but history, a record. Okay, so it is your personal belonging, yourself. Is it or not? If we would try to understand the particular self, what am I, where am I, how am I? It is by searching our own bosoms. When you go back to your writing and trying to reconstruct it there, that we may arrive at it. So here, from your childhood days, if you look at your diary, you will reconstruct the memories of your past and you may arrive at it. So this is what here, concretizing that kind of I from yourself. And here the way how Marcel Proust had tried to say that the way to look at the writing from this kind of background. So when we look at all these aspects from the break of the self from one's own and to have the creativity that also based on the self. So it is nothing but reconstructing it that we may arrive at it. Those words of Proust should be with us whenever we are reading the biography of a writer or the biography of anyone who depends on what can be called inspiration. So here, on the surface of the biography of someone's, if you're reading, if you're going to, try to look at what kind of person and what is his self, and you will see that is an inspiration. All the details of the life and the quirks and the friendship can be laid out for us, but the mystery of the writing will remain. So here you look at the person from the background of the writing, and here how that writing is happening. See, all of us write a diary, but we may not all have the creativity. Is it or not? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello, students. So here we are for only marks, first class marks. We are not going beyond that. Is it or not? So our limitations of the reading is for what? For only first class. So that is what I questioned. What kind of readers are you? Have you questioned ever before like this? Can anyone of you please? What kind of readers are you? Tell me.
Voracious readers. Avid
Yeah,
readers.
you are a bookworm, voracious reader.
Voracious.
Okay? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Voracious
You
reader.
are a silent reader, a loud
Silent
reader.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you may have this kind of readership of your own, but
Qualities,
when you
yes.
look at, is it a purpose of reading? or not? For instance, here I wish to say that you are a reader of not only the examination point of view. You may go beyond if you are going to read a original text, and you are an implied reader. You are an implied reader. You are an inscribed reader. Are you listening to me? Can you listen? Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
You
Yes,
are an implied reader or an inscribed reader. If you look at the implied and inscribed readership, then where you are when you are reading a text or a poem. If you are going beyond that, you are reader against the grain. You are a reader against the grain. Are you able to understand? Hello?
Yes, sir.
For instance, if you look at Roland Barthes, Death of an Author, Death of an Author, and Stanley Fish. Hello? Hello? Hello, students. Somebody is making noise. Please mute. Somebody unmuted their device. Please mute it. Hello? Hello, can you hear me? No, who is this? Hello?
Swapna, are you there?
Hello?
Swapna, please mute your device.
Hello? Who is this? Swapna, Arpula Swapna. Hello? Hello?
Swapna, are you there? I think the host can please mute. Swapna? Swapna, are you there? He's with Swapna, Arpula. The host, please mute her. Yeah. You can.
Yeah. Hello? Yeah. Yeah. We'll come back to our readership. If we look at the reading from the implied readership, inscribed readership. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So here, the third reader who is against the grain. Are you able to understand? Hello?
Yes.
First one is implied reader, second one is inscribed reader, and the third one is reader against the grain. What is the third one against the grain? It is demolishing the authority of the author, okay, by the reader to become the author of the text. Did you get my point here? Hello? Hello?
Sir, yes.
No, sir.
No, sir. Please repeat, sir.
See here,
Explain.
I told you first you are an implied reader. You may have the influence of that. And you are an inscribed reader. Whatever is there, you feel that, oh, Shakespeare is great. Anton Chekhov is great. Milton is great. If you read the both writers as a reader who is against the great, who is against the grain. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. We are with you.
Who is against the grain? What is it? What is this grain? It is nothing but the way how the writer had tried to establish the authority of the author in his literary text. So here, if I will give you the a poem or a novel, all of you read from your preoccupied thought. Then I'll ask you, is there a text? Is there a text in the classroom? Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Is there a text? Did you get my point here? Did you get my question?
Yes, sir. First, we read with a preoccupied mind, and then we follow the text, your explanation.
And then? Yes. And then what?
Then we should revise what you said.
Yeah. That means you will emerge from the literary text from your preoccupied thought. Is it or not?
Yes.
Because you will see that you are a creative writer, whatever you read the literary text. So what are you going to do? You demolish the authority of the author to say, is there is a text? No, there is a text, and you are against the grain. For instance, you might have read Kalidasa's Shakuntala. Hello?
Yes, correct.
You might have read Virginia Woolf's A Room of One Soul. You might have read all the male-centered literary texts. Then they portray the woman is submissive, the woman is mischievous,
Yeah,
disloyal.
she emphasized on the femininity.
Yes,
Feminism.
if you look at Shakespeare's dramas, he has heroes rather than heroines. By whom?
Yeah.
By Ben Jonson. Ben Jonson commented, Shakespeare has heroes rather than yes.
Heroines.
So you look at how male chauvinism emerged from the dramas of Shakespeare to say in Shakespeare dramas as a woman of a family as mischievous, a disloyal wife, and the daughters too had that kind of nature to deceive their father in Shakespeare dramas. For instance, if you look at King Lear, is it or not? So he has heroes rather than heroines. But if you are looking at from the feminist perspective, you will see that how Shakespeare's dramas had the touch of the Elizabethan society and to show that the disloyalty of women. So what are you going to look at? That the portrayal of women in all the dramas of Shakespeare are all from the male chauvinism against the woman. So what are you going to do? The drama that to demolish the authority of the dramatist from the dramas to say there is no drama of Shakespeare from your preoccupied thought that it should be a different drama from your perspective, from your perception, from your creativity. So what are you going to do? That reading is not implied or inscribed, it is against the grain. So you should feel that the characters of Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, should not portrayed as a disloyal wife. Is it or not? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
like that here, the way how Shakespeare had of his own self-world and the literary world is second. That is nothing but he has two worlds. So why I quoted here? Because you are close to the reading of the examination and implied reader and inscribed reader, but you are not going beyond these two of your reading. So you should be a reader against the grain to demolish the authority of the author. So this is what here you can look at that those words of Faust should be with us whenever we are reading the biography of a writer. So that could be any writer who is a poet or a dramatist or somebody else, and then if you look at the way to have our perception of the reading as well as its whatever the literary background. So this is what here you can see the biography of a writer or even the autobiography will always have this incompleteness. So if you look at that kind of inspiration of the biography, and here it is a mystery and no amount of documentation, however fascinating, can take us there. The biography of a writer or even the autobiography will always have this incompleteness. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So here,
Yes, sir.
as a self, and you write your diary, there are gaps. So it is an incomplete of your autobiography, or somebody writes one's biography. So here it is that kind of a mystery of the writing will remain. Are you able to understand? It is unlike writing the exam, it is a mysterious of the writing will remain. Now we look at Faust is master of happy amplification, and I would like to go back against Saint View just for a little. In fact, Faust writes it is the secretions of one's innermost self, written in solitude and for oneself alone, that one gives to the public. What here? See, are you able to understand here? Oneself, will remain, and whatever he will be publicized is different. Hello, hello,
Yes, sir.
Yes,
hello.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Are
Yes,
you able to
sir.
understand? One's private life is different and the public life is different. So here you can see two worlds of a person. Is it or not? Hello? Can you
Yes,
hear
sir.
me? So this is what one
Yes, sir.
bestows on private life in conversation or in those drawing room essays that are scarcely more than conversation in print. It is product of a quite superficial self, not of the innermost self, which one can only recover by putting aside the world and the self that frequents the world. So this is what here, the writer is in two worlds. One is of his private, the other one is in public. Is it or not? Hello? Can you hear me?
Sir.
For instance, if you look at an MLA or MP or a minister, he has his own private life and the public life is different. So they are into the two worlds. Is it or not? So like that, when he
Yes, sir.
wrote that Proust had not yet found the subject that was to lead him to the happiness of his great literary labor, and you can tell from what I have quoted that he was a man trusting to his intuition and waiting for luck. So here, the way how it is with this kind of trust of one's intuition and waiting for luck, whether he is a popular novelist or not. So it depends on the luck, but he has that kind of intuition of trust. I have quoted these words before in other places. The reason is that they define how I have gone about my business of reading. I have trusted to intuition. I did it at the beginning. I do it even now. I have no idea how things might turn out. Where in my writing I might go next. I have trusted to my situation, intuition to find the subjects, and I have written intuitively. I have an idea when I start. I have a shape, but I will fully understand what I have written only after some years. So here, the way how the writer is emerging from the two worlds. So he says, I said earlier that everything of value about me is in my books. I will go further now. I will say I am the sum of my books. Each book intuitively sensed, and in the case of fiction, intuitively worked out, stands on what has gone before and grows out of it. I feel that at any stage of my literary career, it could have been said that the last book contained all the others. So here you can see that the way how the writers are emerging from these two words. As well as he mentions that the last one contains of all the other previous books. So it is with this kind of literary history of the writer. It has been like this because of my background. My background is at once exceedingly simple and exceedingly confused. So, as I told you, to look at the new historicism and new criticism. I was born in Trinidad. It is a small island in the mouth of the great Orinoco River, Venezuela. So Trinidad is not strictly of South America and not strictly of the Caribbean. It was developed as a new world plantation colony. And when I was born in 1932, it had a population of about 4 lakhs of this, about 1,50,000 were Indians. Hindus and Muslims, nearly all of peasant origin and nearly all from the Gangetic plain. So here, if you look at that, how he is dealing with his memories of his childhood days, the way how he was born in Trinidad and how he has been growing like a creative writer, and he had mentioned that how developed that kind of gradual change in his understanding of his writing or background of his personal life. This was my very small community. The bulk of this migration from India occurred after 1880. The deal was like this: people indentured themselves for 5 years to serve on the estates. At the end of this time, they were given a small piece of land, perhaps 5 acres, or a passage back to India. In 1917, because of agitation by Gandhi and others, how indentured system was abolished, and perhaps because of this or for some other reason, the pledge of land or repatriation was dishonored. For many of the latter arrivals, these people were absolutely destitute. They slept in the street of Port of Spain, the capital. When I was a child, I saw them. I suppose I did not know they were destitute. I suppose that idea came much later and they made no impression on me. This was part of the cruelty of the plantation colony. So here, if you look at what is he referring, how he was in Trinidad and how he, had that kind of memories of his childhood days and how he looked at the, destitutes, indentured labor, and how, he had referred that, passage back to India. And here, if you look at the way how agitation by Gandhi, all these are all, of his observation. And when you look at that he always emphasizes that he is there, he is with this kind of understanding, he is with this kind of observation as an insider and outsider of that, country. So here you look at how he had mentioned that I was born in a small country town called, Chagunas, two other, or three, miles, inland from the Gulf of Paria. Chagunas was a strange name in spelling and pronunciation, and many of the Indian people, they were in the majority in the area, preferred to call it by the Indian caste name of Chauhan. So look at, he has been, trying to say that how I is making the self of his belonging, and how he had tried to look at all these aspects from his personal point of view, that the way how he has been emerging from the self, not the other. So he has that kind of insider and outsiders experience. Are you able to understand? Hello? Hello,
Yes, sir.
students, are you all here with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So here, as an insider, maybe, as a man, and as an outsider, a writer who emerged from the insiders of observation. I was 34 when I found out about the name of my birthplace. I was living in London, had been living in England for 16 years. I was writing my, ninth book. This was a history of Trinidad, a human history trying to recreate people and their stories. I used to go to the British Museum to read the Spanish documents about the region. These documents recovered from the Spanish archives were copied out for the British government in the 1890s. At the time of a nasty boundary dispute with Venezuela, the documents begin in 1530 and end with the disappearance of the Spanish Empire. So this is what he had mentioned, that how he was, in the Trinidad, and the history of Trinidad, and how he had, recreated the people and their stories. So look at that, the fiction emerging from the facts. Fiction generated from the facts. So here the fiction is a creativity of the history of Trinidad, and here he has been trying to reshape his memories from this kind of historical background. Hello students.
Yes, sir.
Can
Yes,
you read?
sir.
Yes, sir.
Can you read the? I was reading. Can you read this paragraph? Any one of you, please?
Yes, sir. I was reading about the foolish search for E.I. Dorado and the murderous interloping of the English hero, Sir Walter Raleigh. In 1595, he raided Trinidad, killed all the Spaniards he could, and went up the Orinoco looking for E.I. Dorado. He found nothing, but when he went back to England, he said he had. He had a piece of gold and some sand to show. He said he had hacked the gold out of a cliff on the bank of the Orinoco. The royal mint said that the sand he asked them to assay was worthless, and other people said that he had bought the gold beforehand from North America. He then published a book to prove his point, and for 4 centuries, people have believed that Raleigh had found something. The magic of Raleigh's book, which is really quite difficult to read, lay in its very long title, The Discovery of the Large, Rich, and Beautiful Empire of Guyana, with a relation of the great and golden city of Manio, which the Spaniards call E.I. Dorado, and the provinces of America, Emeria, Aromia, Amapia, and other countries, with their rivers adjoining. How real it sounds! And he had hardly been on the main Orinoco. Finish, sir?
Hello. Finished? Have you finished?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What is he saying in this paragraph?
He was searching, but he got nothing.
Okay. Yeah. What else?
He published a book,
Hmm.
and the title is The Discovery of the Large, Rich, and Beautiful Empire of Guyana, with the relation of the greatest and golden city of America. That is the which big title.
Yeah. Now what else? So here, it draws our attention to read or to search for something else, but at last you may find nothing. So here, if you look at that, the father, for the sake of his reputation, for the sake of his lies, had sent his son to his death, and then rallying full of grief with nothing left to give, for went back to London to be executed. So here the story should have ended there, but Spanish memories were long, no doubt, because their imperial correspondence was so slow. It might take up to 2 years for a letter from Trinidad to be read in Spain. 8 years afterwards, the Spaniards of Trinidad and Guyana were still settling their scores with the Gulf Indians. One day in the British Museum, I read a letter from the King of Spain to the governor of Trinidad. It was dated 12 October 1625. So he had referred that history of the Trinidad, and here, if you look at that, how mismatching, interpolations, extrapolations. Say here, I asked you, the king wrote, to give me some information about a certain nation of Indians called Chaguanas, who you say have about 1,000 and are of such bad disposition that it was they who led the English when they captured the town. Their crime has not been punished because forces were not available for this purpose, and because the Indians acknowledge no master save their own will. You have decided to give them a punishment. Follow the rules I have given you and let me know how you get on. So here, if you look at this kind of creativity, or writing, that how there are many aspects which are generated from the fiction and facts. So here, fiction and facts too, are two worlds. So here, when we look at all these from this kind of background, that here V.S. Naipaul says about the history and Chagunas in the documents in the museum. And when we look at how he had referred that I was the first person since 1625 to whom that letter of the King of Spain had a real meaning, and that letter had been dug out of the archives only in 1896 or 1897, a disappearance, and then the silence of centuries. So here, when we look at all these, that how the I was just beginning to go to school. I walked from a grandmother's house past the 2 or 3 main road stores, the Chinese parlor, the Jubilee Theatre, and the high-smelling little Portuguese factory that made cheap blue soap and cheap yellow soap in long bars that were put out to dry and harden in the mornings. Every day I walk past these eternal seeming things to the Chaugunas government school. So here you look at how now all their skills and everything else about them had been obliterated. The world is always in movement. People have everywhere at some time been dispossessed. I suppose I was shocked by this discovery in 1967 about my birthplace because I had never had any idea about it. So this is what I think. It was more simply that the knowledge was not there. So here, if you look at all these, aspects of his self and the literary world, that there was a vague story when I was a child, and not to me. Now it is a unbearably affecting story that at certain times Aboriginal people came across in canoes from the mainland. So here, if you look at all these aspects of his personal life, And as and when he mentions the history chronologically, here he says that I suppose we must have seen him, but I have no mental picture of him now. So I cannot imagine what my mental picture would have been without those stories. So what is he saying? Whatever he read, not for the lectures, but for the writing. So what is he says here? The way how he had that kind of reading, I cannot imagine what my mental picture would have been without those stories. So what it means here, whatever he read the Trinidad history about the Indians and the way how history has been passing through the panorama of life, and here he had mentioned that what could be the imagination or his mental picture without those stories. Okay, the world outside existed in a kind of darkness, and we inquired about nothing. I was just old enough to have some idea of the Indian epics, Ramayana in particular. The children who came 5 years or so after me in our extended family did not have this luck. So here, if you look at how he was very fortunate to have this kind of literary background, but the other children may not have. So like that, here, he says, my grandmother's house was full of religion. There were many ceremonies and readings, some of which went on for days, but no one explained or translated for us who could no longer follow the language. So our ancestral faith receded, became mysterious, not pertinent to our day-to-day life. So here you look at that, how he said that literary writing is a mysterious, okay, writing is a mysterious one. So when we look at all these from his personal memories, as well as the readings of Ramayana and other scriptures of India. And here you look at, we made no inquiries about India or about the families people had left behind. So here we read, for instance, if you hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. See, if you look at Romila Thapar as a historian, she wrote antecedents, and how the antecedents represents that Indians are gamblers, rope trickers, and they live on streets. And here, whatever she wrote, the understanding of the Europe, and it is nothing but through the lens of the America or Europe. And here we never and ever tries to inquire about India or about the families people had left behind. When our ways of thinking had changed and we wished to know, it was too late. Page number 174. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello, students?
Yes, sir.
Page number 174, the last paragraph, you look at here, when our ways of thinking had changed and we wish to know, it was too late. Okay, so this is what here, how you are going to read something else at the age of 40, and your thinking maybe change, and it was too late. I know nothing of the people on any father's side. I know only that some of them came from Nepal 2 years ago. A kind Nepalese who liked my name sent me a copy of some pages from an 1872 Gazette-like British work about India, Hindu castes and tribes as represented in Benares. The pages listed among a multitude of names those groups of Nepalis in the holy city of Banaras who carried the name Naipal, that is all that I have. So here, if you look at the way how it owns that, whatever he read and how he looked at the history of India, and how he wishes to say that how a writer emerges from the reading, and here it is an imaginary creativity to contextualize the reading from insider's point of view and to have that kind of outsider's point of view. To give you this idea of my background, I have had to call on knowledge and ideas that came to me much later, principally from my writings. So here, what he says, it is a treasure trove of reading the books of way back centuries of the 16th century, 15th century, no matter of any age, but here he himself, says that he had the knowledge and ideas that came to him much later, principally from my writing. As a child, I knew almost nothing beyond what I had picked up in my grandmother's house. All children, I suppose, come into the world like that, not knowing who they are, but for the French child say that knowledge is waiting. That knowledge is waiting. That knowledge will be all around them. It will come indirectly from the conversation of their elders. It will be in the newspapers and on the radio and at school. The work of generations of scholars scaled down for school texts will provide some idea of France and the French. Hello? Hello, friends.
Yes.
Yes,
So
sir.
this is what he has been trying to generate the idea that how he had emerged from his childhood memories and parental background and grandmother's house, and how he looked at the writing of the other texts from his personal point of view and the outsider's point of view. And here, if you look at in Trinidad, bright boy though I was surrounded by areas of darkness. School elucidated nothing for me. I was scrammed with facts and formulas. So here you look at, I loved the idea of books, but I found it hard to read them. Page number 175. Hello, students. Hello, students.
Yes, sir.
See, he says, I got on the best with things like Anderson and Aesop, timeless, placeless, not excluding. And when at last, in the sixth form, the highest form in the college, I got to like some of our literature texts, Mother, Cyrano, de Bergerac. I suppose it was because they had the quality of the fair tale. So if you look at from this kind of background, that he had that kind of treasure trove of reading the books through the centuries. I said I was an intuitive writer. That was so, and that remains so now when I am nearly at the end. So what did he say? Whatever the last book of his writing is the collection of the past. It is the consists of the past, and how that ends with this kind of memories of his chronology. I did because things develop book by book. No, page number 176. Hello, students? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
So look at here, I could only work within my knowledge and sensibly and talent and worldview. Those things develop book by book. So what is he saying here? So whatever he had that kind of observation, of the world view, as well as his knowledge and sensibility made his creativity to write one after the other. So like that here, you know I did because there were no books about those subjects to give me what I wanted. I had to clear up my world, elucidate it for myself. So clear it for himself. So if you look at this, the way to mention meaning of his eye. Okay, yeah. Hello, students. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, read 176 page number. I had to go from this paragraph.
I had to go to the documents in the British Museum and elsewhere to get the true feel of the history of the colony. I had to travel to India because there was no one to tell me what the India my grandparents had come from was like. There was the writing of Nehru and Gandhi, and strangely, it was Gandhi with his South African experience who gave me more, but not enough. There was Kipling. There were British Indian writers like John Masters going very strong in the 1950s with an announced plan, later abandoned I fear for 35 connected novels about British India. There were romances by women writers. The few Indian writers who had come up at that time were middle class people, town dwellers. They didn't know the India we had come from. Sir, finish that paragraph. Sir?
I think sir is
Yeah, I'm there. I'm there. It's okay. See here, no. Just it is about the history and the personal memories of his past, and how he has been trying to recollect the collection of books. And here he mentioned that British Museum, and used to go to somewhere else to know about the history of the colony. And here, if you look at that, he had realized and that reading made him to become a writer rather than the conversation with others. And here, mention of Nehru, Gandhi, and strangely, it was Gandhi with his South African experience. For instance, if you look at Gandhi's autobiography. What is his autobiography? Can anyone of you please? Hello. Hello.
My experience.
Yes, sir. Experience with truth. Yeah. There is no any kind of truth. What he says, it is an incomplete. And here, discovery of India by whom? Hello.
Jawaharlal Nehru.
Yeah, discovery of India and glimpses of history. Okay. And if you look at all these, how these two national intellectuals had emerged from the history to write something about the culture or tradition against the colonizer. And he had mentioned, Kipling. There were British Indian writers like John Masters, and here he says that these writers' works are incomplete. The few Indian writers who had come up from this kind of background, that they do not know where are we from, and they did not know the India we had come from. Okay, so it is nothing but misinterpretation and gaps of the history. So this is the way to understand how his readership made him to find out the gaps in the history of India, as well as the writing. So when I began, I had no idea of the way ahead. I wished only to do a book. I was trying to write in England, where I stayed on after my book years, at the university. So this is the way how my world was quite different, and it was more urban, more mixed, and it deals with this kind of the romanticization and cosmopolitan background. As and when the life of the street was open to me, it was an intense pleasure for me to observe it from the veranda. So here he is talking about the Chaugunas. I explained nothing. I stayed at ground level. I presented people only as they appeared on the street. So here, if you look at through the lens of a literary creative writer, he does not have the experience, authentic experience of the people who are on the street. Just whatever he had seen on the streets, he had mentioned. I wrote a story. A day speak. I presented people only as they appeared on the street. The material began to present itself to me from many sources. The stories became longer. They could not be written in a day, and then the inspiration, which at one stage had seemed very easy, rolling me along, came to an end. But a book had been written, and I had in my own mind become a writer. Hello, hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, you have seen that how he had one world of his personal life, the other world of his creativity of writing. And can any one of you read the 177 last paragraph, the distance between? Yes, please. Hello. Hello.
The distance between the writer and his material grew with the two later books. The vision was wider. And then intuition led me to a large book about a family life. During this book, my writing ambition grew. But when it was over, I felt I had done all that I could do with my island material, no matter how much I meditated on it. No further fiction would come.
Hello.
Yes, sir,
Hello.
finished.
Yeah, you
Finished.
continue. Accident. Yeah, you continue.
Accident. Accident then rescued me. I became a traveler, traveled in the Caribbean region, and understood much more about the colonial setup of which I had been a part. I went to India, my ancestral land, for a year. It was a journey that broke my life into. The books that I wrote about these two journeys took me to new realms of emotion, gave me a world view I had never had, extended me technically. I was able to, in the fiction that then came to me, to take in England as well as the Caribbean. And how hard that was to do. I was able also to take in all the racial groups of the island, which I had never before been able to do.
Yeah. So here, if you look at that, how he had the observation, memories of his personal childhood days of his grandmother, and the way how he read Ramayana and the other books, and observing the society through the lens of this family background, and how it is making sense of that the new fiction was about colonial shame and fantasy, in fact, about how the powerless lie about themselves and lie to themselves, since it is their only resource. The book was called The Mimic Man. So here, if you look at the way how he had mentioned all these aspects from an observation and memories of the past, and the knowledge and ideas how emerged from this kind of background. So when we look at this kind of background, the way to say how he had, with this kind of creativity from the gaps of the society. So when we look at then we can find out how the mimic man is a novel that evokes a colonial man's experience in the post-colonial world. You know, colonial man experienced in the post-colonial world. So here, when we look at the way how he had mentioned all these aspects of the mimic men of the post-colonial element, that how during the colonial time we had this kind of all the memories of the past, and they are with our history. So when we look at these kind of aspects of the post-colonialism, then here is mimic men is with this kind of ground reality of the past. So here, if I had, I would never have been able to do the book. The book was done intuitively and only out of close observation. What is he saying here? The way how he had close observation with his and intuition, with his that kind of inbuilt nature to know the colonial time, how it was emerged from this kind of background of the gaps of the history, as well as the colonizers use of the hegemony in against the colonized people. So when we look at the survey of early part of his literary career, try to show the stages by which is just 10 years of his birthplace developed, that kind of writing through the memory, and it became with this kind of complicated one, and it is nothing but the widespread schizophrenia. So here you are lingering into this kind of background of the history, that you can understand the way how is with this kind of background of the complexity of memories. And here, if you look at, the people had to define themselves, a simple enough idea, but it required a new kind of book. It called for a new way of traveling. Hello, students. Hello.
Sir, what
Hello.
is schizophrenia, sir?
Schizophrenia, it is nothing but a fear of your whatever the psychological upheavals. See here, I had mentioned in one of the lectures of our classes that Partha Sarthi, who is a Tamil poet, and who had mentioned that his tongue is in English chains, the way how he lost his mother tongue because of the English language. And it is with that kind of schizophrenia, it is nothing but a fear of his, mother tongue that he lost. And it is an exile from his homeland when he had that kind of schizophrenic, psychological upheavals. Then here widespread schizophrenia, from the comedy of street life to a study of a kind of widespread schizophrenia. What was simple had to become complicated. So if you look at this kind of colonial background from the lens of the post-colonialism, that how our past with this kind of broken memories. For instance, Athiya sends sunlight and a broken column. If you look at this, Manaku Telyani Manacharitra in Telugu by Nalluri Rukmini, if you read that, then you will understand that how with this kind of, broken memories are untold of the silence, untold silence stories, sound of, this whatever the voice of voiceless. So this is what you can see how we have to define ourselves. So as he mentioned in page number 178, the people had to define themselves. No one defined you. You have to define that how you are colonized by the colonizer, to say that you are nowhere of the portrayal of the characters of Nehru as well as Gandhi's autobiography or discovery of India or glimpses of world history. So he had mentioned they are incomplete. So you have to establish yourself to realize that, to define yourself. So this is what here a simple enough idea, but it required a new kind of book. So hello students, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, sir,
So
following,
here
sir.
the history of India is not the history of the reality, because there were gaps, there were ignorance of the knowledge and the idea of the reality, and the books were written on the history by the historians to had this kind of misconceptions about the India. So here the people of India have to define themselves. So the way how he has been trying to establish that, I myself realized to have a new book that deals with the post-colonialism. It is a counter discourse, and the way how he had mentioned all these aspects from the close attachment with the history of the ancestors. And here he says that he has no system of the literary or political, or it guides him to how to politicize the issues. So here he had mentioned that personal is political, no matter of South India or North India or East India or West India, no matter. You have to look at the history from your personal point of view as well as the outsider point of view, to look at the gaps of the historians, whatever their facts and fiction. So he had mentioned that how R.K. Narayan and how he had that kind of, a political idea. And here you can see that how a political of the literary creativity, which does not have any kind of thing to say. So that is what he says. You have to define yourselves. The Indians have to define themselves. I feel we are more inclined to see the humor and pity of things. So here you may laugh at their writing because they are incomplete, and it gives us a new point that of humor and pity of things which were missed from their writing. So here there was only passion and the borrowed political jargon of Europe. I wrote where jargon turns living issues into abstractions. So here you look at the way how he had borrowed the jargon of Europe, and it generates the idea of usage of the language of the political issues, and jargon ends by competing with jargon. People don't have causes, they only have enemies. So this is what here he had established the post-colonialism against the colonizer, to say that the combating forces emerging from this kind of literary jargon, and which was borrowed from the Europe, and it has that kind of living issues, and the jargon turns living issues into abstractions, and where jargon ends by competing with jargon. So this is what here how he had tried to retaliate the hello students,
Yes, sir.
hello. Yeah. What is retaliation? Taking the revenge against the enemy. So he ends with that the only have enemies, they only have enmity, nothing to do with that of their narration. The narration which emerging from this kind of post-colonial point of view, he says that it will be established from the borrowed jargon of the Europe, but it is a counter discourse and it is dealing with that kind of moving issues into abstractions, but it ends with the competing of that whatever the concerns of the post-colonialism. So this is what how here the jargon ends with the enmity against the colonialism. And the passions of Argentina and are still working themselves out, still defeating reason and consuring right. So here, when you look at no resolution is in sight. I am near the end of my work now. I am glad to have done what I have done. Glad creativity to have pushed myself as far as I could do, I could go, because of the intuitive way in which I have written. So here you look at the way how and so, and also because of the baffling nature of my material. Every book has come as blessing. Every book has amazed me up to the moment of writing. I never knew it was there, but the greatest miracle for me was getting started. I feel and the anxiety is still vivid to me, and I might easily have failed before I began. Hello, hello.
ఏమలో ఒక ముక్క తోటి పర్సనల్ రైట్ క్రియేటివ్ అదొకటి అర్థమైంది.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Somebody is talking something else, no? Here, yeah. So far, here we have gone through the structure of this essay as well as the insiders and outsiders memories of V.S. Naipaul, also observations about the history of the colonial time and how he had emerged as a writer to say that I will end as I began with one of the marvelous little essays of Proust, against Saint Bew, the beautiful things we shall write if we have talent. Proust says, or inside us, indistinct like the memory of a melody which delights us through, though we are unable to recapture its outline. Those who are obsessed by this blurred memory of truth they have never known are the men who are gifted. Talent is like a sort of memory which will enable them finally to bring this indistinct music closer to them, to hear it clearly, to note it down. Talent, Proust says, I would say luck and much labor. Okay? Hello, students. Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, sir.
Okay, so here what he says, is it the luck of a writer or is it a labor? So here Marcel Proust says that you should have the labor of your readership. Then only that will see the popularity of the writer. So when you look at all these from this kind of background of V.S. Naipaul, then we can understand how he had tried to emerge as a writer from the way back to our India of colonial. The colonial India had merciless memories of our broken, people's sacrifice. So here you have seen that how he had emerged from the labor of industrious readership. He had the touch of the industrious leadership to have the vividness, lucid, crystal clear creativity in his writing. That is what from the post-colonialism. So this is what how it is a combating force against the master, and he had tried to establish that mastery not with the luck. It is with the memory of the past and the history as well as the culture, and then with the labor. So he had mentioned, many writers of Europe and America as well as India, and then he had mentioned that it is with not the luck, and it is much labor. Okay, so here when you look at all these, then you can understand how he had tried to mention these two worlds from this kind of background of reading and writing. So this is the way to understand these two worlds. One is the personal, and the other one is the observation and memory through the creativity and literary contribution. So with this, I stop here, and we will see that in next class the rest of the other topics. Okay. Hello. Hello, students.
Yes,
Can you hear me? Yeah. Are you able to follow the lecture?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So here, when you look at that post, yes. So, hello. Hello, students.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Continue.
Yeah. Somebody is saying something else. Hello. Hello.
Listen.
Hello, students.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, nobody is responding. Why? It is tough to understand the politics of writing. What did I say?
understanding of thing.
Politics of writing. Politics. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, every writer has his or her own politics of writing. So until unless they politicize their writing, they may feel that they will not have any kind of name and fame, awards and rewards. But he says that you should emerge from the history with the facts rather than the fiction to romanticize to have the lux. So he says that you should read something to write. It should be matched with the reality of the past. So here, when you think, you will come up with ideas of knowledge, and you will try to write down. So this is what here, the way we look at the things from our side and from other side. Okay, so here we are into the two worlds of our life. Is it or not? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you please go through. Yes. What happened? Yeah. So please look at this. How you are, with the idea of the two worlds, and then you can understand all aspects of all aspects of what the literary creativity, and then you can understand that the writer who was emerged from the two worlds. So with this, I stop the lecture, and we'll see you in next class. So thank you, one and all. Hello.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, please go through. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.